My name's KP, and we're talking arts and crafts with Bo. So I think for my art, I think the strongest thing that I'm drawn to is playing music and expressing myself through music. And I feel like with craft, I think that's taking the music that I'm making and making it accessible for other people, and to be able to share that and to be able to have connections with different kinds of people. There's a lot of other stuff that I do as well beyond music that is artsy.
Would you mind going into that too?
Well, from a young age, like I was always just immersed in, I guess, in art, but different kinds of art. With my family, my dad is a master carver, and he grew up teaching me a lot of things about that sort of art, Coast Salish, native carving and painting, and it's kind of just like this family trait that we have. Like where I'm from the Swinomish Indian tribal community in Washington, and so there are a lot of families that, some of the families will be more into like fishing and crabbing, and then some more into like taking on these different kinds of like leadership roles, or more into the environment. And the family that I come from, we're all artists, and so it's always been a part of my life. I grew up going to art shows and that my dad would have, and like playing on like totem poles and just weird like wood structures in my yard. And so that I think has always been a part of my life and will always continue to be a part of my life. So I don't fully practice the stuff that I learned from my dad right now. It's definitely something that I feel like I want to learn more about. I've just been focused on the music aspect of creativity and art, but I think it's something that is gonna be in my future. I can sense it.
Yeah.
But when I was younger, my dad and I used to carve together, and we would do these like kind of small wall hanging type pieces, like a lot of animals, like frogs and hummingbirds and stuff like that. And he would also teach me how to paint, and so he would carve things, and then he'd give it to me, and he'd have me paint it. And so I was, I guess kind of like I was a little bit of an apprentice.
Yeah. Would he instruct you in how to do it, or did he kind of leave it up to you to intuitively?
He would instruct me, but then it wouldn't be like him always looking down over me. It'd just be like, you do it this way, and then he'd let me do it, and then yeah, I miss that. It's something that I want to get back into. So I feel like just growing up, it's art has always been a part of my life. And it wasn't until I started playing music that I felt like I had my own type of art that wasn't necessarily something that was a trait of my family. So, yeah. The other thing that I've been doing recently is I've been exploring beadwork. There are a lot of really amazing bead weavers in my family, like my cousins, like they all know how to bead like super well. They're super talented. It was never something that I was like into when I was growing up. I don't know why. I'm not sure. Like I think it just everybody tends to have their own little thing. Mine was, I guess, just music. I was into music. They're into beading. But recently, I was like, I really like beading. I want to like get to know like how to do this. I don't know what you would call it. Craft. This craft better. One of my cousins who she moved to Louisiana. We would always go and visit her when we tour through Louisiana, and so one of the times we were with her, I really wanted to learn how to do these certain kinds of bead stitches, and so she showed us, and like then after that I was like, this is really cool. I'm really into it. When I moved to Portland, I moved here to go to college, and I was so excited about college. I was just like, this is something that is new to me. It's like this is like a milestone in my life. Like I was really into it, and it didn't really hit me that it was a very different lifestyle from what my life was like growing up on an Indian reservation until like about like halfway through two-thirds of the way into school. So I then just started, I don't know if I was like freaking out, but I was having a hard time because I was realizing like it was just like every day I was like, this is like not where like I grew up. And I went to this school called Lewis and Clark College, which is a very nice school. It's a liberal arts college, and it costs a lot of money to be there, to go to that school, and a lot of the kids that go to that school, they can afford to go to that school. Their parents have enough money to send them to that school, and I was there with them, and so I was just like surrounded by this privilege of people who like don't really understand or don't really come from a background that I came from. And so that was what sort of like made it hard, because I was just like, I'm in this weird world. Like I was so excited to go just because I was like, this is a cool thing that like I'm actually going to college. Like I'm actually like moving off of a reservation where like most reservations are essentially prisoner of war camps, and there's this whole like reservation system where people are put in this place and like they're expected to stay there. Like there's this whole history of like Indian agents keeping like indigenous people there. So I had this thing where like I moved off of the reservation, even though it's a very important part of my life and that's where I grew up and I love that place. It was a big step for me, and I understood that when I was doing it. So I was like just excited. I was like, I'm really excited to do this. But when I got here, essentially, I was just like, whoa, this is like, it is very different from where I grew up, and I struggled a lot. I was like, I had a hard time in certain like classes. Like I remember feeling like I didn't belong there, and like felt like I didn't deserve to be there, and that was like really hard thing to try and overcome. And try and just be like, yeah, I actually deserve to be here, and I should be here. The voice that I have should be here. And so I tried my best, I guess, to like sort of not infiltrate, or maybe infiltrate these like classes and be like, yo, why are we just learning about white feminists? We gotta learn about other things. And like had just like these kind of awkward conversations with some professors who like didn't really get it. It was weird. And I was just, I feel like I wish that maybe like right now I could be in that setting, because I feel like I would be a lot more, I would be stronger, like support and talk in media about like women of color and like queer trans people of color who are important to like talk about and know about than there was back when I was in college, because like that was like 10 years ago for me, so a lot has changed.
Did you have people at Lewis and Clark who could echo
Yeah,
your thoughts and
I
concerns?
had like my group of friends, but like the people that I hung out with, not everybody was in like the same like major track as I was in, and so they weren't like in the same classes as me. One of the things that has been super helpful for me is to be able to find like a support crew and like a good group of friends, and I think that that's just a good advice for anybody. It's just to have a good group of friends. But one of the things that has been important for me in those friendships is being able to relate to my group of friends. So essentially having friends that are like me, that are people of color, that are queer people, that I can just be like, hey, like this is what's going on, and they can like totally understand in this like way that they can speak to it because they have those same experiences, and so that has been something that that immediately when I got to college I was like, this, like when I first started feeling these like kind of lonesome feelings, I was like, this is what I need to do. I need these people. It actually took a bit for me to find a Native community here, and to find people who just are part of like the cultural experience of like Indigenous issues, and just practice. It's just everyday life, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So rather than somebody being like, oh yeah, like I support Native people, like yeah, it took a while, and I think it also it took people inviting me in and being like, you should come to this, you know, there's this thing happening, come to it. And then actually going and realizing that there's an amazing Native community here in Portland, and that like there are a lot of opportunities for people to come together and to connect and to create and to like just be there for one another and to live life essentially. So yeah, which I think that like sometimes that gets I guess not talked about a lot. I feel like the perception of Portland is that it's like a very white city, and that like, which is true, but I think that sometimes when you say that, you ignore the people of color that do live here, and like and how much those communities, however small they are still thriving, and are still like trying to connect with one another. Like yeah, there are tons of like Native events that happen all around Portland, and yeah, it's definitely it definitely I think needs to be talked about more, just to make awareness for it.
Like it's a disservice to just point out the fact that Portland is in fact very white, but only to leave it there is to by silence not address the fact that there are thriving communities. What influences in your family have shaped the way you do music, what it sounds like, or I don't know if that's something that's been intentional, or just over time you start to sense that there are these like connections?
Well, I think that the way that I feel about music and the way that I think about it has been deeply affected by essentially where I grew up and like my heritage. I don't necessarily think that the sound or like what like, you know, notes or whatever I play, which I get this question a lot, which is interesting because I
like influences.
I think, and it makes me wonder if people are just like does the Native American music that you listen to, does
Find
that
its way.
find its way into your music? And it's like, yes and no. I think there's a better way of like asking those sorts of questions, because for me, like with playing music and with listening to music, like I always go at it from a place in my heart, from like a place that is just really meaningful to me. And I learned that from like the songs of my people, and our connection with song and our connection with like prayer. But that doesn't necessarily mean that when I play music it's going to sound the exact same as that stuff. But at the same time, like, that does deeply affect how I create. I don't just create, just be like, okay, let's do these songs that are like first chorus, and then there's bridge, and then there's a chorus, and it's done. And then, like, you know, we have to do all these chords in them. They have to be a certain way. Like, that's not like that's not how I write music really at all.
You don't feel bound by that.
No, it's more of like a, I guess I could say it's more of a spiritual thing, but that also kind of sounds cheesy just because it's like, it's not like I light a candle and I'm like, all right, let's play this song. It's
no, just so you know, I know that the first like inclination is that it has to be that.
Yeah, it's more so like when I am feeling like I want to create music, it's because it's with intention, and because it comes from this place of love and this place of meaning, and it's deeply affected by emotion, how I feel about just things, life, the world. So yeah, it does impact the way that I play music, but not in a way that I think a lot of people would think.
Yeah. How would you better ask that question so that you could get at what you would want to share?
I mean, I feel like, I don't know. I'm not sure if there's. Let me try and think.
Yeah. Or maybe we don't ask it.
Yeah.
That's always
That's like that. I think that I would much prefer that question to not be asked in like a vague way.
Yeah.
Just because I'm like, oh gosh, I don't know. But it also like, and this is like most of the time me like knowing who I'm talking to, and most of it is like white people from like kind of these other just cities that I'll be going on tour in. And so a lot of it is people being out of touch with like indigenous issues. And so they're very broad questions, and sometimes like I don't really want to answer those kinds of questions that are like,
that might zero me and have to speak on behalf of
right.
large.
But I'd rather talk about, like, go more in depth into things, but maybe they don't understand. Like, for instance, what you're just saying about your family and music, like, it made me think about, like, well, what is the kind of music that you're creating? Because for me, like, there's this sense of, like, we need things to be, like, you know, traditional. We need to like honor our ancestors, but at the same time, so much has happened. There's been so much like colonization and change in our communities that I don't think we're ever going to be the same, because we're assimilated. We're assimilated people. We still practice our culture. We still honor it, but we're not unaffected by European colonization. And so I think that like for me, and maybe also for you, what you're doing, what I'm doing, it's still a part of who we are, and it's still a part of like what the people that we come from. It's just different. And I think that it's okay to be different, because sometimes like with my culture in particular, you get stuck too far in the past, and it's hard to get out of there, especially when you're living in the present and so many terrible things are happening. You have to like try and save yourself, try and save your family, try and save like your culture. And I think it takes a little bit different thought. I don't know. I don't necessarily know what that is, because it's. I think for me, it's. There's this like kind of like, okay, well, where's the balance like of being respectful to your ancestors and to your elders, but also ensuring that there's a future for your people. And ensuring that generations to come have that future, that living in this world where we live now, the atmosphere, the climate, like the environment that we live in is different. So I think you just need to keep having conversations and figure out what that is. But yeah, I'd much rather talk about this. And this sort of insight when people are like, so how does your music affect, like what connections does it give to your heritage? Like, tell me about growing up in your tribe. Like, this is what I really want to say, but I feel like I can't, because I feel like some people don't understand, or like they won't get it, and it'll be me trying to explain like what a powwow is, or like what just certain specific things are, rather than what I really want to do is get into the theory behind it and get into like like super political stuff, radical thoughts, essentially. So
you've probably heard that question enough to know exactly what the answer is that they're hoping for, or the direction.
Right. No, it made me realize that I think I need to come up with a little FAQ page or something to give to my publicity team to send out to people, to be like, here are the questions that are okay to ask, but you probably should be or like questions that are okay to ask, but know that the answer might not be pretty.
Exactly. Like, ask this knowing that my response might veer off what your station or this, like...
Right.
At least what you might expect to be answered. That makes complete sense. Thank you for being patient with that question.
Oh, yeah. So people are putting together a panel, and it's it has to get approved, so I don't even know if it will be a thing, but it's about Native Americans in music, and I like being a part of those things to some extent, but part of me was like, is this gonna be like a I'm talking for all Native people sort of thing, to like this like highly capitalistic music festival? Like, it just doesn't seem like something that I would want to be a part of, because I remember in the description it was like, let's hear from these original Americans, and like, I don't like considering myself as American. It's not something that it speaks to me. It's like, I don't feel American. I'm indigenous. Like, I'm pre-America. This just got slapped on a piece of paper and dubbed me this, because if it didn't, I'd probably be dead or be somewhere else. But yeah.
So has it all happened and then they're waiting for it to air, kind of a thing?
No, it hasn't happened yet. It'd be for next year. But yeah, I'm not sure if I want to do it, because I'm just nervous that it'll be one of those like, she speaks for all people, but also I see at the same time it's like, well, it'd be nice to actually have a voice in a very like white music scene. So it's one of those choices where I'm like, do I do this? Do I not do it? You know, does this feel right, or is there another way?
Are there others on the panel whom you trust that you could.
Yeah, that was the thing. I wasn't familiar with with the people that they wanted to do that, so I wasn't sure. I was like, I think I need to look more into it and like figure out if it's actually something that would be a good thing to do. Well, I decided to pursue a solo project that is also a live band and also just a band in general, which is known as Black Belt Eagle Scout, because I wasn't feeling fulfilled in other music projects that I was playing in, and I was having fun. It was I was like, this is great, I'm playing music every week, I'm like doing this, but it wasn't giving me that like incredible feeling that I don't even know where it comes from, but just like that, okay, I'm doing this from the heart, like this is something that's really important to me. I wasn't feeling that, and so I realized that the way that I could feel that is if I like tried it out myself, essentially, and became the songwriter and the creator and chose my message to go out rather than being a part of someone else's message. The bands that we're playing with, I wasn't, they were fun bands, but also it was like, I feel like the stuff that I have to say is important, and like I have a lot to say, and that was not a part of the bands at all. And so I was just like, man, I need to do something where I actually get to talk and I get to like express what's meaningful to me about my life and about the world, and be able to do that through music, essentially. So I started pursuing this project more, and wrote the first album, Mother of My Children, and recorded it and got a local label to put it out, and then I was still sort of playing in other bands, and was like, when am I gonna have time for this? I don't know. And then it just hit me. I was like, you need to do this. You need to do Black Belt Eagle Scout. You can't do these other bands. You put so much like time and effort into actually creating an album, and to like, finding somebody who could put it out for you. Yeah. And to doing like, this is easy. This is what you're supposed to do. It worked out, but there was like that time I was like, there's no time. What you have to do these other things. And
spread too thin.
Yeah. And so I was just like, all right, this is what you're gonna do. And it was really freeing, like to like know that, okay, this is the only thing I'm gonna do now. I'm not gonna be in other bands. I'm not gonna, just essentially, just be spread too thin. I'm gonna focus all of my energy, and this is gonna be my one thing that I do. And so I don't know.
Was it giving you that, how you mentioned when you were playing with other bands, that it was fun, you're getting to play music, but it was missing that component of being like the meaning, the fulfillment?
Yeah. Was
that kind of automatic when you started giving more time to your solo project? Was it like, oh, this is why?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I got excited. I was just like, I felt like this weight was lifted off my shoulder, and I could like just walk easy. I was like, this is great. It felt right. It felt right what I was doing. And I also knew that I had a lot of energy to give. I knew that I had a lot of stuff in myself to put out into a band, like and to like in like organizing and like actually creating the music and like finding shows to play. Like I knew I had all these skills that like if it was just me, I could just do it. And so
did you do that all on your own at first, or still was the putting together the band, arranging all the music, booking your shows, like do you do it all?
I did at first. I have a little bit of help right now.
Good.
Mainly because I wanted to tour, and it's easier to to get shows if you have like a booking agent that's securing them on your behalf, because then they could actually get you a nice guarantee and then make sure that everything is routed correctly. Yeah. Well, maybe could I talk about like going from just being doing like local stuff to what I'm doing now?
Oh yeah. No, the answer is always yes, because I'm just super curious. It's more of what you feel willing to process out loud. So yeah. So I had always planned on just having Black Belt Eagle Scout be like a recording project and just, you know, put out some records, but also and play locally and maybe go on a tour. It wasn't supposed to be this thing that it is now. And that's not to say that like it's a bad thing. It's actually a really good thing for what it has turned into, but it wasn't ever a plan of mine to be doing everything that I'm doing now. And it's just sort of happened like kind of magically in this weird way. Like I had a local label put out the album, and it had, you know, been on like the streaming sites or whatever, had gotten like a little bit of press, and then one day I got this email from people at Saddle Creek asking like, hey, like I heard your songs, they're really good, like what are you up to? Like, what are your plans? Like, do you have an agent? You know, do you have a manager? Like, what's going on? Like, we want to get to know you. And I, like, immediately freaked out. I was like, what is this? Like, this is something I was not expecting. That was the instant that kind of changed the direction of Black Belt Eagle Scout. It was when I started this relationship with my current record label, Saddle Creek. And that was a really cute courtship, because we just, you know, I immediately I was like calling my friends being like, okay, so there's this amazing thing that happened. I need to do it. I was like, this is a great opportunity. I cannot pass it up. Because it felt like one of those things where it's like when you're a kid, you dream of music, you dream of these things, and you never think it'll happen, that like you could actually like have success and stuff beyond like DIY touring. And that they reached out. That it was something that they saw it and plucked it out.
Yeah, and so like because like I said, like it wasn't like, oh yeah, let's do this with this band. Like I wasn't looking for somebody like them. It wasn't ever a thing that I was not interested in, but like it wasn't a goal of mine then. And yeah, we had this courtship and finally decided that we wanted to fully work with one another. And they wanted to put out Mother of My Children again as a reissue, because they really liked it, and they say, we want to work with you from the ground up. Let's do this, and then we'll have these other records that you do. And so that was a really cool thing, because that record just, I don't know, it was really important for me to make. It was just this piece from my life that I wanted to have for myself, but also like have for people to listen to, and for it to be able to, I guess, go further and to extend further and for more people to listen to it, I think was really incredible, and I was really happy about that. It wasn't something that I had planned, but it was something that I definitely wanted. So
congratulations, by the way.
Thanks.
That's really good.
Thanks. Yeah, it's weird too to think about it, because when I decided I wanted to make this the record Mother of My Children, it was because I needed to get something off my chest. I needed to record this moment in my life that like I was struggling through, and I was just like, you know what, like I'm having a hard time right now. There's a lot going on. there's a lot of stuff that like when I play music, I'm noticing that I sing about, that I write about. Like, I should just make a record. I should make a record. I should go through that process of like documenting the whole thing and actually create a physical record of it, so that, you know, I can say, here's this time in my life where it was not a really good time, but I, you know, processed through it. I created something out of it, and now hopefully I can move on into other parts of my life. I think it's really important, like when you're struggling through something, to be able to have something physical that you can see that's like, this is, you know, this is how I got through this.
Yeah. Like markers of those.
Yeah, yeah. And so that was what it was supposed to be, just that. And so, yeah, I think it's incredible what has happened. Definitely not something that I expected, but I'm having fun.
What is something that you would want people to know about you, anything about you that maybe wouldn't come across clearly in social media?
Oh, yeah.
Something that's going to be missed. Like, you're like, you're going to look at it, you're going to get this, this, and this, but you're not going to get this.
Yeah. I think that, like, I'm very different from what I post on social media, only because, like, I don't post a lot of, like, talking videos. Sometimes I will, but, like, sometimes I'll post, like, kind of, like, harsh seeming opinions, or sometimes I'll post, like, you know, just stuff I'm doing. But it, like, that stuff is like, no, I don't think anyone would ever get to know me from any of that. Like, I'm just like, I'm very different from what I say, just because it's not real life. Essentially, it's
like
not
really just snippets.
Yeah.
That you can.
Yeah, and I also, like, sometimes I'll post like little videos of me talking, but those feel a little bit uncomfortable, because it's like, oh, I'm just talking to my phone, and it's not really anybody I'm talking to, and I feel like shy.
Trying to be engaging.
Yeah,
but you look up.
but
and
it's a phone.
Like,
yeah. And I know some people can do that, but it's just, I have a weird time with it. I'm just like, no, I'd rather talk to somebody in real life, and I'd rather, you know, talk to people in person rather than through social media. And I try to do that when I play shows, to invite conversation and to speak from stage about things that I think are important, because I think, you know, the stuff that I say on social media, some people get really offended, and I think some people end up being scared of me because they think I'm really harsh. But I don't know, it's just an opinion.
Yeah.
But
do you find that in live settings, have people ever approached you with and have like said that
subtly?
Yes.
Subtly.
Where you're
subtly.
Like, I can sense that you're trying to say that.
Yeah, someone when we were playing like Newport folk festivals, I played for like this kids and family tent, and this dad and his daughter and a couple friends, they came up to me after the show, and he was like, they're like, I don't know, probably like 8 to 10-year-old kids, and he's like, they're all super fans of yours, by the way, and they're all like, oh my gosh, blah blah blah, and he's like, I bet you wouldn't think that like 4 white girls from Connecticut would be fans of yours. And I was like, well, you know, it's all good.
It's all good. Yeah, a little.
But it was funny, because I'm like, he knows that, like, he probably follows me on social media, and he knows how I feel about like my experiences in playing like shows to mostly white people, and like how that sometimes sucks. So, and that wasn't a bad thing. It wasn't like him being mean. It was sort of just him being like, kind of in a jokingly way, being like, these girls really like you, but here's who they are.
You can see plainly.
Yeah. And I was like, cool, you know, nothing, thankfully, nothing like too harsh has happened. and I feel very privileged to not have to go through a bunch of just BS that I know other people go through. So, yeah, I'm gonna put that there because, yeah, I know a lot of people, they get critiqued harshly, and like there's a lot of really mean, ugly people that say ugly things, and I haven't had a lot of that, and it is a privilege to be able to not have that. Not saying it probably won't happen, but right
so
now, far,
there's been a lot of good.
So, well, one of the reasons why I continue to play music and to just kind of do what I do is because I never really had anybody that I could look up to when I was growing up that was like me. And I know how important that is, to be able to have somebody where you can say, hey, this person is like me, and you know, me seeing them, like, that means that I could do it, you know. It's all about representation and meaningful representation. I learned a lot about that at the Rock and Roll Camp for Girls, which like I've been a part of since I was a teenager.
Can you say what that camp was again?
It's the Rock and Roll Camp for Girls. So going there, I learned like it's important for girls and people identifying as girls to like know that they matter in music and to know that they can play music and to feel empowered by that. And so I learned that lesson and that element of life there, and taking it and thinking about it through my lens. I always think about Native youth, and I think about Indigenous girls, and I think about like queer youth and like trans youth and people who need mentors and who need like leaders to be able to show up for them and to say like you are worth everything, like you can, you know you are loved, you deserve to be happy, you deserve to be cherished, things like that, which I think that with the political climate of like Republicans and like with the president right now, that's not apparent. And so I do music because I want more people to be able to do music. I want more kids of color. I want more Native girls. I want like the queer kids, the Native queer kids, all those youth to be able to like see me doing it and to be like, oh, she's somebody that's like me, like that's awesome. Like they don't necessarily have to like my music, but just the fact that like somebody is doing it, that means, you know, that's more space for somebody else like me. That's creating space. Something that I learned from one of my friends, their name's Demian Danette Yage, is we talk a lot about our like vulnerabilities in being like Native artists, and one of the things that they told me is that no matter if you're like, you know, doing something, if you may not be doing it in like the right way, and it may not be like the way that elders want you to do it or specific people want you to do it, but the fact that you're doing it means that you're creating more space for someone else to do something. And I think about that a lot when I play music, because I look at like the indie rock scene, and I don't see a lot of Indigenous artists. There are Indigenous artists, but there's still like the majority of the artists are like white people playing music essentially, and I just want more opportunities and more space, because there are incredible Indigenous artists out there, and it's something that I think more people need to get behind, pretty much. Yeah. And I'm not trying to say it as like, oh, like you just need to create a diverse music community just because, like, well, duh, like that should just be a given, but also like these people create like amazing art. So
yeah, like it makes sense.
Yeah.
What was your first job ever?
Oh, my first job. I sort of had a kind of job. I worked for my mom, but it was like, it seemed more like I was just volunteering. She would sort of give me money, but it was just to help her. She had her own law firm, and she needed me to help sort files and file things. And so my first job was like organizing law files.
Yes. And at that point you're like, I know this is not what I want to do forever.
Yeah, but also it's like that has been something that I feel like I've done a lot, is just organizing stuff. But it wasn't until I was in college that I had like another kind of actual job. I had like a work study job where I worked at a computer lab, and it was the silliest job ever because I just sat at this computer and did my homework and then would help people who like were having problems printing. And
I was just about to say it was like probably the printer.
Yeah, and it was just because, you know, they pressed this one button that it makes it hard to print, and I'm like, no, you have to go file print instead of this print button.
I'm like, wow, she's so smart. Like, yes, I am. I work IT.
And it was the silliest job because it was just like, this is not a job. I'm just doing my homework, and I'm like, you know, like you could make a sign and put the sign on a computer.
It's like 3 steps.
Yeah.
But they're paying KP.
Yeah. So that was kind of like the real first job I had, and then after that I was a gardener for a bit, and I really enjoyed that. I was told I was really good at it, so I pride myself. Like,
I love it.
I can garden.
Yes.
I pull weeds really well.
It's like instant gratification.
Yeah.
You need that weeded, it's done.
Yeah.
That's good.
But it wasn't until after I graduated that I feel like I had my like first, you know, adult job. And that was when I started working at Mississippi Studios, the music venue. And that has been a part of my life kind of ever since I graduated. So, yeah, I didn't do like food service or anything like that.
What's the most recent thing you've changed your mind about? That's like a big question to drop in. Sorry. Hopefully it catches it.
I've been trying to change my mind about jealousy, I think. And that's always, I think, an ongoing thing for me, is I have hard times with my feelings around jealousy, and I've been trying to change my mind that I shouldn't be so jealous, essentially, or just like that I shouldn't, you know, have these harsh feelings sometimes that I do.
Mm-hmm.
That I should instead go with love and go with like kindness,
mm-hmm.
and go with support, and not do jealousy. I know like it's like a human feeling that, like, you know, it just happens. Mm-hmm. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What do you think of people going to Hawaii and Maui for fun?
It's not often I ask that. Well, when I first came up here for school, I think I was just so alone that when people, like Maui's one of those, or Hawaii, it's one of those places that, the nice thing is that you can be invisible and then someone's like, oh, you're from Hawaii. Oh. And being like 17-year-old Isabeau is like, oh, I'm not invisible now. Someone wants to know about it. that becomes tiresome when you start realizing that they're, not everyone, but a lot of the questions, whether they know better or not, are just, they feel that they'll just never understand that Hawaii is not what it is to them. So the tourist destination that they're excited to go to and that they've been saving up for, and that I have never and will never be able to engage the island or the islands in the same way. But probably a younger Isabel was just like, oh yeah, come to Hawaii, like I have something to offer. Cool, come back, and had just enough visitors where I don't even think I knew what was going on, but I'd get really exhausted and stressed and anxious over it between hosting. It took a long time to figure out that most of the people who were coming to visit, they had a specific idea of what Hawaii was. It's basically like a perpetual Disneyland. And they'd either come and stay with my family in my community, which is not Disneyland. It's like in neighborhoods where most of the locals live. And they'd either express disappointment or look disappointed, or I would feel strained. It just became clear that there's something very different between like a good conscious traveler and what my dad would just call like users.
I can't remember what I was gonna say.
Oh shoot! Take a sip of your coffee.
I think that's why, because I picked up my coffee.
This is kind of. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate you sitting down with me.